Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a Ariens Platinum 24 snow thrower, and it has a Briggs Stratton engine on it. We're going to go ahead and replace the carburetor today. I do want to show you, if you do need to order parts for this engine, this is a little tricky for the model number, and I just want to show you where it's at on this particular engine. These are the engines that go under snow throwers. Right here on the side of your engine is a plate, and the model number is right where my thumb is on the bottom here. The model and type number is right on the bottom, and they're the numbers that you need to look up the parts, any parts for this engine under Briggs Stratton. Just go to a Briggs Stratton website and you can look up the parts online. I'm gonna go ahead and get this up on a bench and we're gonna get started. Okay, so I got it up on the bench so you guys can see this a little better, and I just want to show you Briggs Stratton. Actually, it's a nice engine for snowblowers. It does have a fuel shut off, and right now it's straight up and down, which is in the off position, which we need to have this off when we're taking off the carburetor. And that's a nice feature. A lot of snowblowers don't have it. They do kind of mess you up right here where it kind of looks like it's 11.5 horsepower, but it's not. It's actually 11.5 foot-pounds of torque, and it's 250 cc's. It's approximately, I think it's around 8 or 9 horsepower, technically. It could be a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on where you get your information from. But we want to take off this right here. This is what gets us into the carburetor area. So the first thing I want to do is take off the choke knob right here. And I just use my clip fastener tool. And I'm going to go over the tools at the end of the video for you. So if you stick around to the end, I'll show you all the tools that I used. I'm going to take the key out right now because we don't need this in here. And we have 5/16. They're actually screws, but they're with bolt heads. And these tend to get rusted on, so you got to actually be very careful with these as far as rust goes. You could try using a anti-seize lubricant on this, but it is around heat, so the muffler is right here, so they usually get stuck pretty good. We don't have a whole lot of snow in the area, so we don't have too many issues with them, but I know anybody out there who has a lot of snow, you're going to get rusted up and have a hard time getting them out. This will just slide right up here. And this has a little slot in the bottom of this right here, this little slot right here. That goes over the channel right here. So when you put this back together again, you have to make sure that you get it sat down perfectly. That's why they put the way it's set up that way. It's a nice feature though. I'm going to just put this off to the side, but we're going to go ahead and take off this bottom cover now, which should just be a bolt right here and a bolt right here. Just take this right off and out. Okay, so you have your fuel line we need to take off here, and we have to take off this is the carburetor right here, and we're going to have to take this off. So this is 5/16 socket to take that off. And you're going to see why this carburetor needs to be replaced. All right, so this is a spark arrestor. This is not an air cleaner. This is a spark arrestor. So if it backfires, it's supposed to keep the spark down a little bit, but it is not an air cleaner. That screen, just remember that how that came. Now, right here, you can see how bad this is actually like a goo. That's fuel that has gone bad. All right, so that's not good. We're going to go ahead and this is the primer line right here. If the primer line feels soft or spongy, you want to make sure you replace that. Yeah, so this is actually getting pretty. I'm going to have to replace this. And by replacing it, right here is the other part. You can try pulling this off like so, and we're just going to go ahead and just replace that. But back to the carburetor right here, we're going to take the fuel line off. Pair of pliers. Move it up out of the way. Make sure your fuel's in the off position. Go ahead and push this up. It's really stuck. I'm going to go ahead and use my pliers. Twist it a little bit. That might help you get it unstuck if it's stuck. And this one is definitely a little stuck. All right, now it's coming up. Now just be careful. You might have a little bit of fuel coming out of there. And you take this off. We're ready to take the carb off. I would highly suggest taking it down. Since you have a throttle, take it down to slow speed, and that'll give you less tension on the governor here, which is your governor hookup right here. And then we have to get behind here and take this. This is a bolt, which is, I think these are metric, but they also have Torx heads on them. You can do it either way. So I'm using a 10 millimeter, this is a 10 millimeter swivel, and it's just a, a 1/4 inch socket with swivel, and it fits perfectly. But like I said, you can use a Torx to get in there too. I'm gonna loosen this one up. Okay, so now I have it off. You're attached to your governor arm, and we have to get this little spring out. So I'm just going to use a small pair of needle nose pliers, pick that out. And then you have to turn your carburetor. There's a hook on the end of this rod, and we just have to turn the carburetor so you can just pull it out. The gasoline, this one on my finger, is green. All right, let's go take this over to the bench. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and take this apart just to see how bad the inside is. And being that there was green gasoline, which is not good, I'm just going to see what this looks like. You should be wearing gloves because this gets so bad smelling. If there was smell-o-vision, you'd understand. We do need to take off. This is your choke rod right here, and we need to take this out to put it in a new carburetor. It looks like this might be a little bit different than this right here. Just it looks like it's a little bit longer, but everything is the same except it did not come with this. This is your choke. This is not hard to do. Okay, all you have to do is you need to pull this plate out right here. I'm going to grip this with a pair of needle nose pliers. Just pull it out. And I'm going to leave it connected to my needle nose plier so I know which way it goes in. This should just pop right out. Okay, and it is a little dirty. We're going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We're just going to push this straight down. You can just slide it down like this, and then this is spring loaded right here. So you're just going to click it one notch, and the way that's lined up, it's a little bit facing that way, but we're going to go ahead and slide this in like that, let go, and you have to remember that it has to close all the way. So this has to be sitting. There's little divots. There's 4 divots, and the plastic part will sit in the center of the brass part, and you just have to make sure that it'll open and it closes. And if you have that, then it's correctly done. It's all good. I'm going to get a piece of primer line. I'm going to cut it a little bit long. You can go ahead and put the new primer line on here now. Let's go ahead and put the carb back on again. Okay, so the gasket, which Briggs did nicely, is that you can actually put this gasket and lock it in place with the tabs on the side, which is very nice to do, and it won't go anywhere. Here's our carburetor. We're going to go ahead and install the carb the way we removed it, which is you're going to push up on that right where the hole is there. We're going to go ahead and get the little spring in that hole. We're going to go ahead and turn it like so. The carburetor will sit flush against the manifold. Okay, so this had Loctite on it. I'm going to go ahead and use the blue Loctite. Okay, so I put the other bolt in 3/4 of the way, almost all the way in, and you have to have this out a little bit so you can insert this bolt past the spot right here. Then tighten it up. I'm going to go ahead and put the fuel line down over the inlet. Okay, so we're going to slide this down. Just like so. We're going to go ahead and put the spark arrestor on. I should have mentioned before you put the fuel line on, definitely want to flush the tank of any old gas before you put this fuel line on the carburetor. This tank is empty, so I know that 100% there's no gas in it. We're actually gonna go ahead and been using this for over 5 years now. It's an alkylate, it's 92 octane, no ethanol. It has the fuel stabilizers in it. It will last many years in your machine without being used. Nothing like fuel. It looks like moonshine. It's very, very clean burning fuel. I will put a link in the description below to read about it, and you can find it in your area. But again, if you want the carburetor not to have a problem any longer, start using this. But it's definitely worth not having the aggravation of putting the carburetor, a new carburetor on, as we are doing right now. Before I put it all back together again, I want to start it. We're going to go ahead and turn the fuel on. We're going to go ahead and we have to put the primer line back on the primer bulb. I'm not going to put everything back together again. We do need to put the key in. This one actually has an ignition. This one has an ignition that you have to turn on like that. So we're going to make sure that's on. We can use the primer now, and I'm going to prime it 1, 2, 3. We're going to leave the throttle at like half, and we'll give it a pull and see what happens. Before I do that, I'm going to check the oil. Make sure you check your oil before you start your machine up. This oil, this guy never even used the machine. The oil is so clean you can't even see it, but it's there. And that's why the carburetor went bad. Okay, so there you have it. We're gonna go ahead and put this cover back on. Okay, make sure that you have your primer line not in the way of anything interfering, and you have your ignition wires right here. But when you put this over, it has to slide down over your choke rod, which is here. Okay, everything needs to line up just perfect. Now we just ran this. I'm gonna put a little bit of Never Seez on this, but you have to be careful working around this muffler. It's very, very hot. Just putting a little bit of Never Seez. If you have cracks around your plastic right here, I'd also recommend putting a washer on there. Do not over tighten these. Then we're going to go ahead and put the choke knob back on. Now the choke knob has a large opening on this side right here and a small opening on this side over here. The rod right here has a large opening on this side, so we're going to use the large opening here, and we're going to put it on the large side, so that'll put your choke on. Okay, so once you have your choke knob on, this is very confusing on how you start it. So I'm going to put off right here, and then on is right here for the choke. That's the only one that really gets confusing, but you do need to turn the key on. Number 2, you're going to put the choke on. Number 3, you're going to prime it. Now, I'm not going to prime it because we don't need much to get this running. It runs great right now. Let's go ahead and fire it up one more time. I just took the choke off. Let's go ahead and show you the tools that we use today. Okay, so tools that I use today from left to right, I always use my electric 1/4-inch ratchet, a pair of small vice grips, needle nose vice grips, just regular cutters, 2 pair of different sizes of needle nose pliers, 6-inch extension. This is a 10mm socket with a swivel on it that helps get into the bolts on the carburetor. This is the old carburetor, but obviously you're going to need to look that up online with the model and spec number of the machine. You may need a new piece of primer line or fuel line if needed. I didn't go with the red Loctite on those bolts. I used a blue Loctite. If you want to go with the red, that's fine. If you use red, just beware. It's really going to be hard to get it off. Again, 5/16 socket that took most of the hardware off. My clip tool that I use on pretty much every video that I do. This is the gasket that we use for the carburetor from the manifold to the carburetor. It's a 692555. That's just for this particular engine. And again, use your model and spec number, look it up online. I highly recommend using Aspen 4. That will eliminate your issue with any kind of gas going bad inside the carburetor. This is just a little bit of simple green I use to put the prime line on. And never seize for those screw bolts that went into the cover of the carburetor. Okay, so that pretty much sums it up for how to remove and install a carburetor on a Briggs Stratton 250cc snow thrower engine. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.